Good evening and welcome back. In the previous tutorial we looked at how to do the UVs on our very simple character here. And here are the UVs already done. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these into Photoshop and put on a very basic texture. Now this is not an advanced tutorial by any means. If you're familiar with texture mapping or anything like that, this is not the tutorial for you. This is for anybody who's really new to this and not comfortable working with a highly detailed model at this particular moment in time. With that said, we're going to go ahead and take our UVs. Make sure you're in UV selection. Go ahead and select all of them. And then we're going to send these over to Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Polygons, go down to UV Snapshot. File name, this is going to be wherever the default location is. Usually, if you look, it's Maya, Projects, Default, Images. And then the output is going to be whatever the characters' UVs are going to be called. So where it says out UV, I'm just going to call this, I'll call him Space Dude, because I'm going to put a spacesuit on him. For the size, I generally work with 2K textures, so 2048 by 2048. But you can do this however big or small that you like. Make sure they're in multiples of 2. So 256, 512, 1024, 248, 96, and so forth, and so on and so forth. And then hit OK. Once that happens, we can go ahead and navigate to Photoshop. Once you have Photoshop open, we're going to go ahead and hit the Open button, and we're going to navigate to the location where you have your UV output. That's typically, if you enter, it's under Documents, Maya, Projects, Default, and then it should be under the Images folder. Let's see, I have to scroll all the way through my stuff here. And there's our Space Dude. Go ahead and open. Now when it first pops in, it's going to be difficult to see. Now what you want to do is put a background on here so you can actually see what you're doing. You can do it in two different ways, and I'll show you both. The first one is to come down here where it says Layer. So it'll look like a little page. If you hit it, it'll bring up a new layer. I'll go ahead and put that on the bottom. Over here on our little left-hand panel, we have this little corner arrow that'll switch between your foreground and background color. And then I'll choose the paint bucket. If you don't see the paint bucket, there's the gradient tool. If you click and hold on that, you can find the paint bucket tool. And then make sure you're on the correct layer. I'm on this bottom layer here. Remember, we are not on the UV layer. And if I paint, it should drop it in. Now that's one way to do it. That is the longer way of going to put a background on here. So I'm going to go ahead and nuke that and put that away. And I'll show you the other way of doing it. The other way is if you come down to the bottom, we have FX, this little thing that looks like a Japanese flag, the little circle with the white background. And then right next to that, we have like this little yin-yang symbol here. If you right-click on it, this is our adjustment layers. If we right-click, you have all these different layer options. And at the very top, we have a solid color option. This will create a solid color adjustment layer. And you can see it drops in a layer with a color already added. And you can pick whatever color you like. I'm going to pick black because it's easier to see. And I'll hit OK. And I'll just drag that to the bottom. I'll also name this background. This way, if I want to change the color, it's really easy. I can click on it and pick it, be something different later on. No harm, no foul. But now I have my two layers, and I can start doing some work on my character. I'm going to go down to layers. I'm going to add in one more layer. I'm going to call this my color layer. So let's say color. Now I'm not doing a color adjustment layer this time. I just want to be able to paint on this. So in my color layer, I'm going to choose a paintbrush. There's my paintbrush there. And then this is my head, this is my torso, my legs, and my arms. And I want to make a spacesuit for my character. So the first thing I want to do is I'm actually going to take this, I'm going to go to File, I'm going to save everything, I'm going to link it to Maya so I can get a live update. So go ahead and hit Save As. Alright, so I'm going to call it SpaceDude_texture. And I will save this as a PSD file for now, so I'll go ahead and hit save. I'm going to go back to Maya. Go ahead and minimize this. I'll go to Object Selection. And I will clear this history off just because it's something I want to do later. So delete by type, history. And now we're going to add the color. So if we go up to Rendering, this little Rendering tab, you can pick whatever color you like. We have, Phong and Aniscopic and whatever. I'm just going to pick a Lambert. I'll call this Space Dude Texture. Come down to my color, hit the little box, and then locate my file. Alright, so I got my layer. Go ahead and add that, open. And you can see when it pops in, there's a character with some texture on it. And you can see this little grid outline. This is the UVs that we actually traced. That's those here in Photoshop. Now what's kind of nice is if I add a color, let me go ahead and pick a color, and I just paint this on, and then I save it. If I go back into Maya and click on the little picture here, you can see the color pops in right on the model. We can kind of see a live update, which is really nice. So I'm going to go back into here, and I'm going to Control Z. I'm going to try to figure out what kind of color I want to do for my little alien dude. Let's try to pick a flesh color. You can get whatever skin tone you like. I think that's close enough. Remember, we're painting on the color layer, not anything else. So I'll go ahead and paint the color of my character on. You can see as I'm painting this, I'm getting some color bleed over into the upper torso. And if I hit File and I go ahead and save that, you'll see in the character here, once I update it, that I am getting the color bleeding over into this area. So the way to kind of remedy that is, as I'm painting, go ahead and Control Z. If I right click and I choose in my brush options the solid brush, you can see this one's a soft brush. The soft brush paints with that hazy outline. The solid brush is solid, and I don't have to worry about having that hazy outline. I know exactly where the color is going to be. So I can go ahead and paint this, and I know that I don't have to worry about any excess. Now this is kind of like painting in the lines. Anything outside the UV edge will not be seen. Okay? So if I save it, update it, there we go. So there's this skin color. Now the thing you want to look for has to do with texture seams. Wherever these UVs are split, you might end up with a texture seam. So to kind of show you that, if I were to take the eraser here and kind of dull this out, I'm going to zoom in just so you can see the seam here. If I come in, let's say I clear this out right to the edge. Save it. Let's jump back into Maya. So right on those edges where they kind of meet, if you're not exactly over the edge, you'll get this texture seam, which is what we have here. Because there's some areas where it's just on the edge and it's just kind of grabbing into the darkness. Just make sure that you cover your seams pretty thoroughly, and whatever is on this side of the seam is on that side of the seam. So if I take white, for instance, go ahead and grab my paintbrush, and I'll paint this little streak of white here, and then I'll follow my little UV line, and if I paint this little stripe of white there and I save it, you can see here, because I followed those lines, I kind of matched it up. But if I don't match it up, let's say I made a mistake. Let's say I made it down here instead. You can see how you'd have a mismatch in the texture. So you want to pay attention to where those seams line up. That way whatever's on one side is on the other, and that the texture is clean all the way around. You don't want to have any gaps. Alright, so I go back into Photoshop and I'll start painting my character here. Now again, you can paint him however you like. It can be an alien, it could be a warrior, whatever you want this character to look like. But I want to put some eyeballs on him. So to do that, I'm going to create a new layer. So this is going to be, this is my color layer. I'm actually going to rename this to skin color. So I'll say skin color. I'll make a new layer above that. I'll call this one eye whites, because I'm going to put eyes here. Go ahead and change my color to white. You can also change this by tapping the X key. That'll swap between your foreground and background color. And since I don't know exactly where my character's eyes are going to be on here, because this is sort of unfolded, make sure I have my eye whites here, I'm going to have to do some guesswork. So I'm going to go and I'll say probably there. Let's go ahead and save. Hop back in, click the picture. My character's kind of an alien dude, so that's not bad placement for giant big alien eyes. But if you're a little bit off, or you want those to be more center, or you want to look more realistic, then you'll have to play with the arrangement there. Okay, I'm going to give him sort of alien, sort of almond-shaped eyes. So let's go ahead and give him, I'm actually going to use a shape for this. So I'm going to go in and grab my shapes. I'll grab ellipse. Let's go ahead and grab that. It's a good size. Now, if you make an ellipse or a shape, thing to be aware of is up here to the top, you have a few options. You have shape, path, and pixel. If you want to be able to paint directly on it, you will want to choose pixel. If you don't want any color or anything, and you just want the outline, you can choose path. If you want the shape with a color filled into it, choose shape. And what's nice about shapes is you can, they go on their own layer. So if I go ahead and close this down, I call this, you know, eye. Which eye is this? That's the right eye. So I'll say right eye. Right. Hide my eye whites here. Actually, I use this as a guide so I know where my eyes are. I can move this shape to where I want. I can also rotate the shape. If I press Control T, it lets me rotate it. Seems to be a good spot. And then I'll press Enter. So the next shape is going to be for the pupil. Now, if you want a perfect circle, just hold down the Shift key, and it'll constrain it, make it perfectly circular. And for this one, I'll go ahead and give it a color. So over where it says ellipse, I'm going to go ahead and name this right. So I'll say pupil. Right. And to get the color, if I double click on the shape layer, I can bring up the color palette, and then I can give them whatever color I like. I'll do black. I'm just going to put it there for kind of a goofy effect. And now, so I have my two layers. I have my pupil, and I have the white of the eye. I'm going to take these, I'm going to go ahead and hold Shift and select both. And since I need both of these to make the eye, I'm going to actually turn this into a group. So I'm going to come down to where the little folder is. If I highlight that, it says group. Go ahead and click that. And this is going to be right eye. So I'll say, I do eye, right. I'm going to copy the group. I'm going to hold down Alt and then drag the group. I'm going to call this one eye left. I'll go ahead and move that. And now I need this to face the other way. So all I have to do is go up to Edits, and then down under Transform, I can choose Horizontal, and it'll do a flip. And I can line this up. And you can see these little purple bars that kind of help me align So there we go. I'll go ahead and save it. And then update it. Look at that. Very sinister alien eyes. Okay. Maybe I'll give him a little alien mouth to go along with it. So I no longer need the eye whites layer that I made because I've already lined up these. So I'll go ahead and get rid of this eye whites layer. I don't need that. I'll make a new layer. I'll call this mouth. And I'll just paint a mouth on. You could create a new shape to make a mouth, but I'm just going to paint one on here. So what I want for my mouth color, I'll choose black, so I'll pick the black. And for the mouth, I'll just do like that. Save it, take a look. That's sort of a weird location for a mouth. So I need to move that up a little bit higher. What's nice is since I have this on a layer, and this layer is separated, I can actually move the layer. So if I select a layer, and then I go up to the left here, and I grab the move icon, I can actually just move this, and then save it. Cool. Ah! Now I want to do his little spacesuit. Let's go ahead and do the spacesuit. So on the edge of the suit, I'm going to want a zipper. But for the suit itself, I want some texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new layer. I'll call this suit. If you don't hear the kitty, that is Misty saying hi. She's a bit of a mouthy kitten, right? I'm going to make the spacesuit. I'm going to do like an off-white color for the spacesuit. So go ahead and choose like an off-white. Good enough. And then I'm going to paint the spacesuit. Since the spacesuit is consistent on the arms and the legs, I could just drop in a background color. That's the color of the spacesuit. But if I did that, I wouldn't be able to see the seams very well. So I'm going to just paint it on. Oh, that's too big. Good enough. Okay. Do a quick save and see how that looks in Maya. Pretty clean, no texture seams so far. But I want to add some texture to the spacesuit, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the suit layer, and I'm going to go up to Filter, and then Filter Gallery. Inside here, and actually I'm gonna make a copy of this just in case. Go ahead and hold down the Alt key and then drag the suit layer. Let's drag the copy of the suit layer above the old one. That way I can see it. It's on top. And I'll call this suit texture. Filter. I'll go down to Filter Gallery. I'm going to zoom out so I can see the suit. Go down to Texture, and I'm going to put this stained glass kind of finish on it. That'll give it that wiry look. Let's make the cell size a bit bigger. Light intensity, and drag that down. It is white on white, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. See what and as you can see, the stained glass effect that I did to get the pattern, it's actually hard to see on here. But if you look really close, go ahead and turn the UVs off just for a second. You can actually see, and actually I'll do this under Image, Adjustments, Brightness, Contrast, so you can see. I'll bring the brightness down. And you can see here, because there's a lighting effect with the stained glass, it creates this sort of shaded area, and I don't want that shaded area. So what I'm going to do is actually, if you turn the image to like a black and white and then do it, the lighting effect isn't as prominent. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. And I'm going to go up to image, adjustments, and I'll do an invert. And you can see that I have the stained glass effect on this like navy blue kind of thing. I'm going to go back into my filter gallery. And now if I look at this, it's actually pretty crisp with a black body and then this really nice like pattern outline. And it's just one of the things, if you do this as like a black background, it works nicer than if you did it as you know, a shade of gray or whatever. So I'm actually going to adjust this. And you can see as I get bigger, the lighting in the middle is a little bit heavier. You can see the prominent lighting there. I'm going to go ahead and bring this down. Okay, so there's the effect that I want, but I want this to be on top of this color. So what I do is I'm going to take this layer, I'm going to go up to where it says normal right here, and then I'm going to choose one of these filter options. The easiest way is to just click on the normal tab and then use the up and down arrows. You can see I'm changing it by pressing up and down. And I'm going to kind of tab through and see, or scroll through and see which one I like. And it looks like Lighten is the one that I'm going to go with. It gives me the light pattern, but I also get this as well. I'm going to go ahead and save, file, save. Take a look at the character in Maya. And there's the character with his little spacesuit on. And you can see right here where I'm talking about texture seams. This is where the texture on the UVs does not match the seam that's on the torso. You can see that all the way around there. And you can see on the back here how the texture does not completely line up. Same thing on the legs. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hide that seam by intentionally placing obstructions there that the eye won't catch. So I'm going to come over into Photoshop and I'm going to put the UVs back on so I can see. So my edges are all kind of all the way around here. And since this is supposed to be a spacesuit, I'm going to intentionally put the little zipper hooks or zipper bands on the seams on both sides. So I'm going to go up and create a new layer, and I call this zipper. I'm going to choose a color for the zipper. I don't know. I guess a dark gray is probably fine. And then I'm going to very carefully go around the edges of the suit and make zippers. So I'm going to zoom in here so I can see what I'm doing. Make a brush, and this will be my zipper. And right here I'm getting right in between this this seam here. Now this is just a trick for this particular situation. If you have a different situation for your character, you might have to come up with another method. But this really works like on clothing. If you wanted to put the seams like on a pair of jeans, you could run the inseam up on the leg and kind of get the this effect here. So I'll go ahead and hit save so you can see what it looks like. Right, so right now I'm covering the seam, and you can't see the blotchiness of the seam, but you can see my scribble. So what I have to do is go through and make my scribble look like something that's intentionally supposed to be there. Now for my zipper, I'm going to do a pattern on this. I'm going to go ahead and double click on the layer, and I will come down to, let's see, we have pattern overlay, and you can see that I'm overlaying this pattern. I happen to just have this one selected, but that coincidentally makes sort of a zipper pattern. Bob Ross always says there's no mistakes, just happy accidents, right? Let's see what that does. You may not have that pattern. I may have made that a long time ago. That was different. But there we go. If I add that on, so it kind of worked, but it kind of didn't. So part of the pattern goes one way, and part of the pattern goes the other way. But you can sort of get the idea. But it's kind of neat. I'm not going to go too much into detail, wasting a lot of time kind of fixing this. But as for like a general texture job, this is fine. That should be the end of this video. In the next video, we're going to look at how to set up a skeleton for the character. And then in the following tutorials, we'll look at how to set up the walk cycle and some other actionable animations for the character as well. All right. Hopefully this has been educational. If you like it, hit the button, subscribe, whatever. I will see you guys in the next tutorial.